You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome to Toronto Sports Rush. I'm Kyle, that's Pierre, for a very special Tuesday edition of McGuire Monday. Pierre's just a busy guy these days, traveling. Pierre, welcome back to North American
So
soil.
good to be back with you, Kyle. I'm used to talking to you from arenas or hotel lobbies or all these different things. Now I'm actually face-to-face in my home office. Good. I'm happy.
Nice to be in your own chair for once. And we have to start off today's show immediately talking about the seeming resurgence of Auston Matthews. He has stepped up his game to another level. He was one of the NHL Players of the Week, and in the same week, he became the Toronto Maple Leafs' all-time leading goal scorer.
There's a sense of urgency in his game. There's no question about it. I've been watching it just like you've been watching it. You and I have been talking about it for a while now. You could see there was a bit of an anger to him in a good way, not in a bad way, in a good way. There was an energy, there was a passion, there was an anger. And he's back to almost being Auston. He's shooting the puck a lot better. He's competing harder defensively. He's going the net harder. He's making better plays. So I like it. Now, we'll see how long it lasts with the line mates that he has, probably with Domi and McMahon. We'll see going forward. But I'm more encouraged than discouraged, and I bet you the Maple Leafs are really encouraged. This got to be a huge surge of momentum for him and confidence coming out of the fact that with an original six team, you're the all-time leading goal scorer. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a statement against the Toronto Maple Leafs, though. They've never had a 500 goal scorer, and they've one of the original six teams.
Amazing players.
They have. Not to knock those guys, but it seems like he could run that number up pretty high if they manage to keep him in town. But let's stick with what you just said about his confidence, because I tend to focus on things like both of those goals he scored against the Islanders on the weekend. Those were classic Auston Matthews goals. First with the cut in the move, the strong on the puck move, and then with the release on the one-timer across the slot to set the record.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm so happy because you think about it, Max Domi's kind of a Toronto legacy kind of player, so he's involved in the whole thing too, which is kind of neat. Those are Auston Matthews type goals. I don't think people realize how big a human, and you're a big man to begin with yourself. Auston Matthews is a big guy. And he can push a lot of people around when he chooses to do that. When he chooses to play big, he's a big, hard, physical guy to play against. I think the rest of the way, if Toronto's going to make a legitimate push the second half of the season to make the playoffs, he's going to have to be their best player, and guys are going to have to follow his lead in terms of physicality, defense, commitment to all the little things in the game, especially when they don't have the puck in their stick. When he's really good, he's committed to doing the things you have to do when you don't have the puck.
Yeah, and you can see it right down the lineup. As he goes, so go the Maple Leafs, because this is now, yes, they lost in overtime. We're going to get to the mechanism by which they lost in a moment. But they've now acquired points in 6 straight games, and that's the exact type of play that's required to make this playoff push. And it's one thing, getting in the playoffs is not enough for this team anymore. They have to show up when they're there. They have to at least represent some sort of a threat to whomever they play.
Absolutely, and I think they can. The biggest thing is getting some bodies. So, Nylander's got to get back. Dakota Joshua's got to get back. I don't know what's happening with Tanev. You're probably more plugged in on it than I am. But, the truth of the matter is that's a big loss. And what's going to happen with Stolarz long term, that's a big issue as well. So guys are playing. The best thing I can say about Toronto this year, and I don't know what people are saying in Toronto, but I can tell you this with confidence, that Troy Stecher acquisition on waivers, that's one of the great heists of this season. Like they stole Stolarz 2 years ago. They did. They stole Stolarz, especially for the deal that they made money-wise. Then you look at Anthony Stolarz and how well he was, or how well he played, and then you look at Troy Stecher and you're going, they didn't have to pay anything. All it was just waiver acquisition or an UFA contract. Those are big gets. Those are huge gets.
Yeah, so let's talk about those injuries very briefly here for a moment. Nylander's now been placed on retroactive injured reserve, so the second he's declared ready to go, he can come back.
Yes.
But he hadn't missed a game since 2021-22, and in that season he played 81 of 82. So it's a big deal for him to be missing time. He's been out since late December now. Tanev, the rumor on the street is that he's mulling over, or they're mulling over him getting surgery on that injury. So we could be looking at he's done for the season type of scenario. But Brandon Carlo should be back in the lineup soon, and that's an addition they need. With these other guys falling off, they have to get him back in the lineup.
Especially on the right side of their defense, because you got too many guys playing that are left-hand shots playing on the right-hand side. And if you don't believe me on those types of situations, go watch the Ottawa game last night in Ottawa and watch the turnover that Tyler Clevin, a left shot playing on the right side, makes in the neutral zone, and Andrew Kopp goes in and scores a huge goal to make it 1-0 Detroit. You can't have too many left guys playing on the right side, just like you can't have too many right guys playing on the left side. Because when you're setting up forecheck patterns, especially in the neutral zone, if you got too many lefties out the offside, you're changing your forecheck patterns to run them out of racetrack to lead to turnovers like what we saw last night. So that's something that I'm sure the management team in Toronto is paying attention to and the coaching staff is paying attention to. Carlo's a right-hand shot. It would alleviate a lot of the pressure that's on that group right now, and I think it would help them long term.
Okay, and so sticking with Maple Leaf defensemen, the overtime loss against the Islanders, there's just no getting around the fact that Morgan Rielly absolutely botched that play. It wasn't the Morgan Rielly situation is so complicated because he's taken a lot of flack over the years. Now he's making plays semi-routinely where it's making it easier for people to attempt to, at least through the media, oust him out of town. But that was a brutal defensive play, and it likely cost them that game.
Yeah, well, the kid that beat him is pretty good too. But you're right.
Yeah. Hey, listen, no doubt about that.
You know, Matthew Schaefer's a really good player. I'm still shocked he's not on the Canadian Olympic roster. I'm not going to pretend with you. I'm really surprised he's not. But their general manager said he wasn't even part of their planning at the start of the year. Talking about Doug Armstrong, he said we didn't even have him considered as part of our plan. So maybe they should consider him as part of the plan. But that being said, he's got to make a play. I saw something. I was flying back yesterday as I was doing all kinds of prep to be ready for our show here today. It was his minus versus Jake McCabe's plus minus. Mm-hmm. And when you look at it, it's not even close, and they both play on the same team.
Yeah.
That's not good. Morgan's got to be better. I thought he started the year fantastically well. I really did. I thought Morgan Rielly was really good to start the year. But the last 15 to 20 games, he has struggled. There's no question he's struggled.
And you almost wonder, too, like it becomes very tough on these guys in a hockey market like Toronto once they start struggling and they just start reaching and feeling for it and they don't grab it. You almost wonder if it would be better for him to find himself playing somewhere else, not for just a level of play, but just as a fresh start for both sides, get something back for him if possible. Or just, let him find his game under less pressure somewhere else. I'm not trying to speculate that's what they should do, but I'm wondering on behalf of him and his own mental health, maybe a fresh start somewhere else would help him find his game again.
Toronto had a player like that, except he was a righty. His name was Larry Murphy. He played for me in Pittsburgh, and Larry won 2 cups for us in Pittsburgh and won 3 in Detroit after he left Toronto. I would wish if Morgan ever wanted to be moved, that he could have the same kind of success that Larry had when he left. Because Morgan's a good person. He's a hard worker. He's a proud Maple Leaf. I know Larry was really excited to come to Toronto. I can tell you that right now. He's a Toronto guy that couldn't wait to get there, and obviously it didn't work out for him. Maybe the same thing can happen for Morgan. I don't know, but I don't think you're saying anything mean-spirited. No. Sometimes guys just run out of racetrack in a certain area. It happens from time to time in different cities. Patrick Roy, one of the greatest goalies in the history of the National Hockey League, ran out of racetrack in Montreal.
Did he ever?
and he gets traded to Colorado, and all he does is win Stanley Cups there.
Yeah, all he had was a magnificent second half of his career.
Yeah, that's how I'm saying.
It was, and that's exactly the point you just made, Pierre, is exactly what I was trying to say. I don't like the nastiness that often comes out when these situations arise. Yeah. He doesn't deserve that. No. What he might deserve is a fresh start, and what the Leafs might also deserve, that the opportunity to move on from it. But maybe it's salvageable. I don't know. But this conversation's been going on for a while now, and it might just be a location thing. This might be a Mitch Marner situation all over again, where teams need to part ways with a guy.
Yeah, I think if they had a mulligan, they could figure out a way of salvaging the Marner situation.
You think?
There were a lot of moving parts on that one. But here's what I'd say that's a little different. If they're still a real competitor to be a playoff team, talking about Toronto, they don't have the internal depth to trade any defenseman right now. They just don't, based on injury and lack of depth in the organization at that position. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're moving Morgan, it's one of those deals that happens after the season, potentially at the draft. But I don't see that unless somebody blows you away and you're not being in the playoffs at the trade deadline. I don't see that being a deal that happens during the season.
Yeah, that's a tough guy to move. So let's, I want to go quickly back to the Islanders game on the weekend. Something I find it so amusing and petty the way that the Islanders fans still jeer Tavares all these years later. Like, I love that about sports, to be honest with you, but this far on, I find it so silly. But every time he touches the puck, they're booing. It must make him laugh at this point to some degree.
Yeah, I've scouted games in New York, in the old building in particular, where they would go after the Rangers 1940. They would, and it was unbelievable. The sing song 1940, the last time the Rangers won the cup. And you go in there and it was like the whole building would vibrate because it was a really small building and everything was compact. And then, obviously you go into Madison Square Garden and everybody's like, they still do it. Potvin sucks, and so that there's a huge passionate rivalry there, obviously, that's pretty tremendous. I wish they kind of let the Johnny Tavares thing go. Johnny Tavares was an amazing citizen on Long Island. He was an awesome New York Islander. I did so many games there that he played in. He was a guy that got everybody to go to another level. I'll never forget them playing in the playoffs against Washington, playing against Pittsburgh, playing against the Florida Panthers. JT was a guy that made it all happen. His old coach, for a good portion of his time there, Jack Capuano, he's the associate head coach with the Minnesota Wild right now. Ask him how good John Tavares was.
Yeah.
He'll tell you. It's not even – the guy was so good there. It was crazy. Just give him a little respect. That's all I think, is just give him a little respect.
Yeah, and it's not like he went to the Rangers. The Leafs aren't even a natural rivalry. Sure, same conference, but beyond that, it's not. There's no real bad blood between the two franchises.
No.
Okay, so let's take a quick look at the Leafs' upcoming schedule, because to me, what we're going to see over these next 5 or so games, this is really going to be the referendum about where this team stands, and it starts, of course, tonight against the Florida Panthers, where a rematch of. So much has been said about the way these two teams started the season, but so much was also said about the way the Maple Leafs ended their season against this team last year.
Yeah, no, they're going to have to pick it up against Florida. Florida had a tough winter classic, but they bounced back pretty quick with a win, and so now they're coming in feeling pretty good about themselves. They're starting to get some players back. You look at the standings, they're both pretty close to where you want to be in terms of pushing to make a wild card and eventually jump into the top 3 in the Atlantic Division. So this is a hugely important game. I was looking at Toronto's schedule yesterday too, and it's home against Florida, home at Philadelphia, home against Vancouver, and then there's that brutal trip, Colorado, Utah, which is a back-to-back, at Vegas, and then into Winnipeg. That's a tough, and it's not so much because they're great teams. Like, Utah's not a great team, but Utah's played more road games than any team in the league.
Yeah.
Now they're going home, and they're going to load up on home games. So they're feeling good. They think they got a chance to make the playoffs. Colorado's a whole lot. They need to create another league for them because they're the best team in the league. And then you look at Vegas, they've been up and down. They've been a roller coaster ride the whole year, but they're still a real good team on paper. Winnipeg is the one that nobody can figure out. Even they can't figure it out. Their team can't figure it out.
Yeah, and this is all ahead of that Vegas game, which there's so much more attached to their first game against Mitch Marner on the. It's the first game against him, period, but they're on the road for the first one, and again, lots attached to that. The Colorado game, that's like no one should be measuring themselves against that team right now because they're playing off this earth. But this is a big referendum on where this hockey team stands now, whether or not they can make a playoff run, and how many points they can get out of these games, because there are no tough outs for the next 5, 6, 7 games. And
so let's do 7 games. Let's do the next 7 games, starting with Florida and ending in Winnipeg. So that's 14 points in the standings. I think if they don't get 8 out of 14, I don't think they're going to make it.
I think that's actually quite fair, because I think it would be silly to say, get 11 or 12. I mean, you're playing the A-list of the league right here. But, if they can manage, win 3 out of 7 and send at least one of those or 2 of those to overtime, then you'll be in pretty decent shape. But they have to get.
You got 14 potential points. Get 8 out of 14.
Get 8 out of 14.
Then you're coming home, and then you can start to focus in. And then you got a bit of. Well, most of the guys have a bit of a break coming up for the Olympics. But I think if you don't win at least 8 points out of 14 on this coming schedule of 7 games, I think it's going to be really hard to make the playoffs.
It's going to be really hard to make the playoffs. It's going to be harder still if you do make it to have any sort of impact whatsoever.
Yeah.
If you can walk in and if they could grab 10 points or do something big, if
my
Auston
gosh,
Matthews stay hot,
yeah.
like now it's like full momentum shift conversation, but one game at a time. And I think tonight might actually be the biggest of all of them because of how last year ended.
Yeah, and I can't wait to watch it because Florida now, again, they're going back to the let's create the street fight mentality. They kind of got away from it at the start of the year because they had so many injuries. They were probably feeling the high of winning their second straight Stanley Cup. I've been through that too. Guys kind of let their guard down a little bit.
Sure.
And they all, some of them got real big contracts. Like Sammy Bennett got a big contract. Brad Marchand got a big contract. Aaron Ekblad got a big contract after they won. So they're guys feeling pretty good about themselves. But now they're getting that street fight mentality back in their game. This is going to be a really good test for Toronto tonight. Really good test.
Yeah, it truly will be. Pierre, let's shift our attention very quickly to international hockey. The World Junior team came up short again this year, taking only the bronze yesterday, because truthfully, this is a gold or bust organization. But is what we're seeing now a case of disappointment so much as it is the rest of the world is simply caught up?
I think the rest of the world's getting better all the time. The Czechs have 11 kids on that roster that got a silver medal. 11 of those kids playing the Ontario or Canadian Major Junior Hockey, the CHL.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And they got some playing U.S. college hockey too. So it just shows you how European hockey has expanded their horizons too. A lot of their kids are coming over here and playing. So that makes them better. The Swedes are really going to another level. I spent a fair bit of time over there, and I do some consulting for a company over there. And their development, especially of defensemen, and that was really apparent, I thought, in this World Junior, is second to none right now. They're doing they're getting athletes to want to play hockey at a young age. The cost of playing in their country is nowhere near the cost it is playing in our countries, whether it's the United States or Canada. So I think that's a bit of a factor. And the third thing is, you nailed it, Kyle. The truth is that the rest of the world's catching up. They are catching up. And that's not a knock on Canadian hockey or U.S. hockey. The rest of the world just wants to be good in that sport. And like I said, I spent a fair bit of time over in Europe watching these programs grow, and it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't. I thought Canada was the best team on paper.
Oh, they were.
But you don't win on paper.
You don't win on paper.
And this is the only negative thing I have to say about this team in particular. I didn't like the behavior. And believe me, you ask anybody who was a teammate of mine or who played for me, I was not a guy that liked softness. I liked hard charging, tough guys. Doesn't mean that they couldn't be that, but their behavior wasn't appropriate. And that's why they got themselves into trouble in this tournament.
Yeah, and we're also talking, I was speaking with producer Tim before we started recording today. This format of tournament, these single elimination towards the latter half of the tournament, these really do become about who is hungrier that night and the Czechia beat Canada in that game. They were the better hockey team and they deserved to win that hockey game. And they showed the tremendous amount of talent they can put together. But throughout this tournament, we saw it. We saw Finland is right there. Sweden, who wins the gold, obviously, and we'll get to Leafs prospect Victor Johansson winning that gold medal in a moment. These teams they're now playing level with Canada. And I don't know, you could speak to this better. Does Canada need to make wholesale changes to the way they're doing things, or do they need to just help these guys find a little more dig?
No, I don't think they need to change much. They're still developing as much or more skill than anybody in the world. I think the biggest thing, when I was involved in it, this is part of the process that I didn't like this year. This was the first time that I can remember that Canada didn't have an intense summer camp and then go into an unbelievably hard, rigorous trial camp at the beginning of December. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that. They basically anointed their team after the summer. That had never happened before. So I think there was a complacency that set in with this group, and they were like almost, and I hate to use a term, but I'm going to use it, too cool for school. We're showing up, we're Canada, and this is, even though it's in Minnesota, this is kind of like a home situation for us.
Yeah.
It didn't materialize that way at all. And people started looking at their draft status, and people started looking at numbers, and the wrong things were being talked about. And I think that's something that can be fixed long term. But my experience with, from 1989 until now, Canada was always known for one thing in particular, more than anything else. You didn't mess with them physically because they could beat you with international rules, playing physical, staying within the rule book, and not doing silly stuff. And when they did do silly stuff, they got in trouble and they didn't win. And that's what happened this time around. They weren't smart in terms of how they approached things. They just were not.
Do you think long term, and we're watching the change of junior hockey now, as guys are able to pursue NIL deals in American schools, is it going to change that level of hunger that they're now getting paid before they ever make it to the show?
I hope
like
not. Yeah.
I would hope not either, but there's a big difference between being hungry in the OHL and driving a Mercedes while you play for Boston College.
Yeah, I don't think it's hurt the NFL with what's gone on with football. Like, I think guys that play college football, they still want to play in the NFL.
Let's be honest, Pierre. Those guys were always getting paid. It's just official now.
like they said, the Ohio State Buckeyes were probably the number one pro team in Ohio. Even though they had the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. But no, you're right about that, Kyle. I would just say that I still think players still want to play in the top league in the world.
I would hope it doesn't affect their.
My biggest thing with major junior hockey, and I want to be positive. By the way, condolences. We had so many people. Bob Pulford passing away. Just thinking about it, as we're talking about Toronto Maple Leafs. But I think about major junior hockey a lot, and I just hope that people understand that most of those numbers for a lot of the players, those were put up against younger players. Kids leave junior hockey and they go play against 23 and 24-year-old men. They are men.
Yeah.
It's a way, way, way different deal. And I just don't know how many people pay attention to that.
It's a very good point, Pierre. So let's end back with the Maple Leafs. Victor Johansson wins gold with Sweden. Sweden had a great tournament. Sweden always has a great World Junior tournament. Sweden on the international stage is just phenomenal and have been for some time. Talk a little bit about what Maple Leafs fans can expect from a player that has now achieved gold on the international level that has to help develop.
Yeah, he's a real legitimate B+ prospect, almost bordering on A. And I'm a hard marker on that stuff. So somebody that I think realistically should be in your plans, not penciled in pen, because I think legitimately he's going to be part of your process going forward. Just like I think Ben Danford's going to be part of your process going forward. Good news better than bad news. Better to have guys you can talk about than guys you can't talk about.
Absolutely, Pierre. Thank you once again for joining us on a special Tuesday edition of McGuire Monday this week. I'll be seeing you later in the week. Please take the opportunity to like and subscribe to this video. Like the video first, then subscribe to the channel. We'll bring you all the greatest content here on Toronto Sports Rush. Thanks, Pierre.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.